Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, my setup angle is a little bit different. If I didn't change the angle to deal with the lighting that I've had to put in for the winter, you just wouldn't have a video from me for maybe like 6 months. It's been ridiculous, and so this is just how I'm going to have to roll for the time being, and hopefully it will still look okay. And there's a bit of noise today as well, but such is life. Let's get to it. This is #TarotObsessed and it's by the lovely Katie Flowers. This is her version of Imogen's Oracle Obsessed. I think there's around 15 questions. I appreciate that I've done tarot tags like this before. Some of it may be a little bit repetitive for you guys, and I'm sorry, but I really wanted to do this and I thought that Katie had some really interesting questions. I'll jump straight in and hopefully it won't be too long. Question 1. What was my very first tarot deck? Not much of a surprise to many of you. This is the Medicine Woman Tarot by Carol Bridges. I love this deck. I've had this deck since childhood. I used to use my mum's copy before I was given my own, and I have had this deck for so long that I don't even remember. It's probably... I think this deck came out before I was born or around the same time, so I've probably had or been aware of this deck since I was around 4, 5, if not before. Gorgeous, gorgeous deck. Question 2. What is my current fave deck? This changes so regularly. It can literally change from month to month. I do have kind of more of a long running favourite, but I was recently gifted this, which is the gorgeous Animism Tarot, and therefore this is my favourite deck at the moment because we are getting to know each other. And oh, look how adorable this deck is. It's amazing. Many of you guys will know that I love animal and nature decks anyway, and they kind of, between animal and nature, it's probably about 70% of my collection. So I was really chuffed to get this deck, and I just want to get to know it better. Definitely my current fave. It just looks amazing. Question 3, most used deck. No surprises again, it's the Medicine Woman. Let's not flick through this too much again. I've had it for so long that of course it's my most used, and to be honest with you, I still use it quite frequently for myself just because of the connection I feel like I've got to this deck in particular. Question 4, what is my least used deck? My least used deck is my Rider-Waite-Smith, and this is the Centennial copy. It is my favourite edition of the Rider-Waite-Smith, not that I have any others at all, but I have seen others, and for me this is my favourite colour palette, and the cardstock is divine. I just don't gel with it very much, to be honest with you. It's not really my style of artwork, and I got this deck kind of for learning purposes way after I'd first originally started learning, but on the encouragement of a lot of other people, and that's really what this deck's for, study purposes. Question 5, how did I learn to read tarot? How did I learn to read? I guess it was a kind of mixture, because I was brought up around people who were reading tarot cards. Then I would listen to what they said. I would play around with cards quite a lot and make up stories, and when I say play, obviously I was very young. And then when I started being gifted decks, I would just read the meanings clean out of the book. it wasn't so much a study of the book, because bearing in mind I would have been quite young, and even when I went into my teens I didn't read the book from front to back. I would use whatever accompanying book came with the deck and just read the meaning straight out of there. And then as I've returned to it as an adult, I've taken in so many books. A lot of them were books that came with decks, but very thick, substantial books. And my intuition has always been a big part of my learning, and also storytelling from the cards. And I guess the books that I would have to mention is the Medicine Woman in a Guidebook, because this is juicy, so juicy. There's a lot of complementing things in this book, as well as your kind of generic tarot. And then in terms of when I came back to learn, I think that my favourite book that was an outright tarot book and not a companion book had to be the Kitchen Table Tarot, and purely because it's so accessible and their meanings are short but punchy. They're probably like a page and a half long, and that kind of cemented your more generic but up-to-date meanings in my head, and I really appreciated that book. Question 6, what do I use tarot for? Personally, I use tarot in a very therapeutic capacity, so I would use it in terms of self-development, a connection to my emotional processes, and anything that may be currently unconscious that's going on, to work on bringing that into my awareness, seeing what comes up for me, and being able to shift through, to process, connect. It's a very healing experience for me, and also I would say a very psychological exploration, as well as that kind of emotional and more spiritual aspect to it. And I certainly use it for grounding and bringing me into the present and shedding light on things that I want to consider that are in my present focus or in my present state of being. I also use tarot for fun, of course, and I use it for meditation purposes and to build affirmations or to direct a particular focus. Question 7, how do I read tarot? Is it book or intuition or both? I guess it's more intuition now. What I would say is that I've got a pretty substantial pre-existing foundation in my head from books, so I can't really say that I don't read from books, because it's all kept in the memory bank, as it were. There are still decks or times, depending on how I'm feeling or what I'm doing, that I'll still reach for a book. With tarot a lot less than with Oracle, but obviously again I've showed you the Medicine Woman book. That's a very specific kind of message for each card. It's very out of the box, and so sometimes I may lean towards the book more so on that. But again, I also do like to take into consideration the story that's laid out in the cards and any intuitive hits that are coming up for me, which I get quite a lot, especially if I'm reading for someone who I have a relationship with, in terms of a reading relationship, so whether they're a friend or they're just someone that I've read for quite a few times. Question 8, do I use spreads? I do use spreads, but I flush hot and cold with spreads. As a general rule for myself, I prefer to just pull cards and read the message or story as it comes out and unfolds. I don't find it stressful at all to read the cards as a greater picture and individually, without having the the spread indicators there. I'm completely fine with it. So I guess in that term I'm much more of a free form kind of reader. However, I have noticed that when I'm answering specific questions and reading for other people, I then do, if they want a specific question asked or want to connect with something in particular, then I may be more drawn to use a spread, even if it's something that I just create that fits in with their specific questions. So I do use them, and obviously I do spreads for fun as well, kind of the new moon spreads and end of year spread, things like that. Question 9, do I mix it with other divination? Yes, I do. I use it for meditation purposes because I find that it's a good way to provide me focus for that, and I also love mixing it with Oracle. As many decks as possible. I love mixing decks. I'm a little bit of an addict. Question 10, what makes a great tarot deck? As I talk about this one, I'm going to flip through the Deviant Moon. One reason, because otherwise this video is going to be pretty boring, and the other reason is because I feel like this hits quite a few of the reasons for me of what makes a good or a great tarot deck. For me, one of the things that I am obviously drawn to is the artwork, and so I think that this question, it's kind of a given that it's going to be personal to every single individual. If I'm not drawn to the artwork or I'm not enjoying it, then I am not going to use it, and this has been proven, and I would pass the deck on, although it doesn't often happen, I'll be honest. Usually it's if someone else has gifted me a deck. One of the other things that I find really, I guess for me it kind of shines through, is that when a creator is a genuine, authentic lover of tarot and not someone who just kind of wanted to make some money from doing tarot artwork. They were passionate about tarot, they're passionate about their creativity, and they have a pre-existing tarot knowledge, even if they are going to stray from that particular school of thought. I feel like that's very visible in a deck, in either the artwork and the way it's put together, or even the book. On a really superficial level, I feel like durable cardstock makes a good tarot deck. It's not the end of the world for me, but if I have a tarot deck that I absolutely love and it's not going to last, it does affect my feelings towards it. You know, one backup deck's okay, but having to get 2, 3, 4 backup decks, no. I think as time's gone on, I've realised that I don't need an amazing guidebook, but if there is a guidebook, I'm nowadays a lot more interested in the artistic explanation of that person's process as opposed to the meanings. The books, they can become a bit samey if they are all heavily Rider-Waite-Smith. Some of the best examples of a great book is the large Deviant Moon, the large gorgeous table book where Patrick Valenza discusses his art process. Another great one is The Medicine Woman. That's a worthwhile book. You know, I kind of, if you're going to put a book in there, do something different with it. Provide something that isn't kind of already a given or already out there. And then lastly, and I know that Katie said this, is diversity, but in all of its aspects, not just the ones that are just started to be tackled, but all variations of it. I feel like that would be amazing. Question 11, how important is it that a deck sticks to the tarot system? I'm somewhat flexible on this, and the reason I say somewhat is because obviously if it completely went off on a tangent and then it's an oracle, then at that stage there, for me, I would see it as there has to be some kind of steady flow that links in with one of the tarot schools. However, I am pretty flexible in terms of where they go with that, and I find that a lot of decks, for example the Wildwood Tarot, now that one didn't want to be up, you can see in a lot of the pictures that there is definitely an understanding of the Rider-Waite-Smith, for example, in this deck. However, there's a lot of, or there's a good portion of cards, should I say, that don't follow that do go off on their own route. And I'm totally fine with that, because I find this deck still understands the premise. It's very honest about working along the wheel of the year, and going along a different route, and having a very structured way of helping you learn and explain that. I feel like it's still a very balanced deck, and to be honest with you, this is one of the ones that I have found pretty easy to work with, considering that it went off on a bit of a diversion, for want of a better term. Another great example of that is my Medicine Woman Tarot, and again, I guess I find it easiest to see the Rider-Waite-Smith index because that is the tarot school that I am most familiar with. However, that one again has some substantially different meanings, and I have no problem with that, but I feel like they're structured and they're balanced, and they most definitely came from people who both utilise the tarot knowledge and the schools, even though their decks have differences. Question 12, do I have backup decks? Yes, I do. I don't have many. I have a backup deck to my Medicine Woman because I would not want to be without that deck in reality, and I managed to get my hands on a backup of the original printing. I also have a backup copy of Tarot of the Pagan Cats, and I have a backup copy of my Raven's Prophecy, which I think I would have got a backup copy for, but I was given that backup copy because my first deck arrived damaged, and there was some noticeable damage on it, so the company that I got it from replaced it for me, so I'm using the damaged one until it really kills over, and then I've got that backup one. Question 13, do I have an unusual deck? I guess that this is the most unusual deck that I have, in terms that not a lot of people own it. I have only picked up a small portion of the cards because I can't hold the whole deck in my hands. This is the Pokemon Tarot made by Pokebox, and it is incredibly Rider-Waite-Smith, and in that aspect isn't very unusual at all. However, this deck is freaking amazing. If you are a Pokemon nerd like myself, look at the lovers. And it is very unique in its size as well. It's impossible for me to shuffle in my hands. I have to kind of rub it around the table. But also, look, you can see it's made out of like plastic, and it's metallic. But it's just a freaking awesome deck, to be honest with you. And I know a lot of people don't like this. Sometimes I will shuffle another deck and then I'll pull the cards out from this one, because, as I say, I just can't shuffle it in my hands. Otherwise I make a bridge or a mess with them and pick the cards out from that. But it doesn't bother me because I'm not much of a collector. But as a Pokemon nerd and a tarot nerd, this was a, oh my god, I have to have it. And it was a present. So super psyched to have this deck. And as I say, it's really Rider-Waite-Smith. The person's done their homework. Look at Raichu for the 9 of Cups. This deck is amazing. And I really haven't seen more than about 4 people, at least on Instagram, with this deck. So yeah, I think that warrants an unusual deck. Question 14, what is your current deck crush? As Katie's already asked what our favourite deck is at the moment, I would imagine that this is a deck that I don't have. However, I've been naughty and I've picked a deck that I do have as well, because I can't show you the one that I'm crushing on. The one that I am mega crushing hard on is the Dame Darcy. I really would love that tarot deck before I miss out on an opportunity to get it. And at this stage, I'm past caring what version of it it is. I would just love that deck. Other than that, I have to say that I regularly crush hard on my Tarot of Pagan Cats, which, as you can see, I have this one, because this, despite being cats, is so readable, so connective for me, and I guess this is the closest thing that I've got to a Rider-Waite-Smith that I actually use. This is like the cat version of the Centennial, but I love it, and it works so well, and it's given so many powerful readings, not just to me either, but to people that I've read for. So I do crush hard on this deck too. But Dame Darcy, oh my god, I loved The Little Mermaid as a kid, and I would really, I know I don't need it, but I severely want that deck. Question 15, do I read reversals? I don't read reversals in the obvious way, and one of the main reasons that I don't is because I don't find the reversed meanings as balanced as the upright meanings. So for example, if you get a reversed meaning on a lighter card, it becomes, at least for me, the traditional reversal feels incredibly negative, whereas a card that is naturally more of a shadowy card doesn't feel as out of balance as that. And therefore, there are several ways that I read I guess my version of reversals, and I know that I'm not alone in this at all. I completely acknowledge blocks. If a card does come up upside down, then I would potentially consider that as a block, dependent on how I decided to read. I do decide how I'm reading in my mind before I do it. I feel like when I read an overall, so I'm doing a free flow and I'm pulling cards, I'm a very balanced shadow and light person anyway, and I see all of the aspects in the cards. That's how I've taught myself, and in reality that's life as far as I'm concerned, and I feel like it's something that I'm able to do in free form. But even more specifically, when I have created a spread or I'm using a spread, I feel like again that is able to indicate, especially with spreads like, you know, where am I blocked and how can I help myself through this, then it's a very obvious way to read a card if it's considered a lighter card but it comes up in your block. I am hoping that I am explaining that well enough, because I don't have another eloquent way of saying it, but basically I would encompass those aspects into it and have a balanced reading that way. And the final question, is question 16. If you could only have one deck, oh my god, aren't I boring? You guys, of course, it's the Medicine Woman Tarot. If I could only have one deck, yes, it would be this. However, Katie did something really interesting, and she picked a deck for herself, or just her kind of obvious one, and then she picked a deck for reading. I believe it was reading with others. Because you always hear me bang on about this deck, it's not like you haven't seen the other deck that I'm opening now, but a deck that I feel I do read for others with my Medicine Woman, but I feel that it's an acquired taste, not just for others, but for the style of the messages that come out through that deck. They're always really in-depth readings, really in-depth, and the people, I choose them if the people are ready to do the work. I don't know how to explain it any better. The other deck, if I could have one deck for reading with people and I had to get rid of the rest, I actually feel like it would be my Wild Unknown, because I feel like this is a good all-rounder. I've not really heard people say that they don't like being red with this deck, even if they never gelled with it themselves. And I just find it a very balanced, to the point, poignant and powerful read. So of course it would be my Medicine Woman, but next on the list is most definitely my Wild Unknown, especially as more of an all-rounder. And that's me. I kept it under half an hour, which is amazing because that rarely ever happens. It probably means I've forgotten to say something that I'll be really gutted about, but never mind. If you guys have jumped in on this, then let me know. If you want to ask any questions, message below. And other than that, thank you to Katie for making this hashtag, because as always, I'm loving the hashtags. See you later, guys.